informed the folks over in IG.
All right.
Just gave them the link to come on over. You know what I'm saying? So we are live in effect. Our another edition on the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast of the Melinated Music with Blackpunk Now co-editor Chris L. Terry. And I have to say this, man, and this is going to be kind of a special. Yeah, look, that's going to be a little. This is going to be kind of like a really special. I've had a couple special Melanin music episodes, but this is going to be real special because I'm talking to a homeboy, literally. You know what I'm saying? And this cat right here, when if you read my book and I talked about, bicultural living and leaving the world of illusion, pick it up, yourbrozo.com. When I talk about my transition with the music and everything, this cat was here witnessing it all. You know what I'm saying, and experiencing it all, and like living it all, and in his own way. And we're gonna get into that. So this is kind of more of a special thing. I can't wait to talk to him because really just to talk about the whole concept of Black Punk Now in the book. Connected with James Spooner. He was on here with me a year or so ago, and yeah, as y'all know, I love my black rock music, my punk rock music, my hardcore, my ska, what I'm saying, all the above, what I'm saying, it changed my life. So that's enough of me. No more talking about me. I'm gonna talk about my man Chris here. Go ahead, Chris. Please introduce yourself. Tell them what you do, what you got going on, all that good
Sure.
stuff.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming over from IG Live. I got some tech limitations, and you're on my laptop right now. I don't know if y'all know this. Zoe is a Richmond hardcore and punk rock legend. He used to have a great band called Independent that I was just telling him I saw a bunch of times back in the day. But about me, let me talk about myself. My name is
Yes.
Chris L. Terry. I currently live in Los Angeles, California. I'm an author. I'm a creative writing teacher. I teach classes at Emerson College and Goddard College and UCLA Extension. Got 2 novels out in the world. My most recent one is called Black Card, and it is inspired by some of my own experiences, kind of figuring out my own like multiracial Black identity while playing in punk bands in the South, in Richmond, Virginia, and beyond in the 90s and in the 2000s. But it's about a mixed race punk bassist who he loses his actual Black card. He has like an actual membership card, and he has to go on a mission to win it back. And in the process, he gets like a more nuanced idea about himself and about Blackness, and starts kind of questioning a lot of the choices he's made. So that's Black Card. And my most recent book is called Black Punk Now. So I co-edited this anthology with James Spooner. James made the original Afro-Punk documentary in 2003. And he also is the author of a graphic memoir called The High Desert that it talks about his experiences getting into punk while living in a small desert town in California that has like a big neo-Nazi problem. So Black Punk Now is an anthology with fiction and nonfiction and comics, and it's all by and about Black punk rockers. We got everything from horror stories to coming of age stories to, let's see, a roundtable discussion by all the like, women and non-binary people who run a lot of the better known like Black and brown punk festivals these days. And even stuff for activists, things like ways to fight the surveillance state.
Oh, I like that.
And it's all in here. It's kind of, James and I were thinking of it as like we were making a gift to our younger selves who wanted to find ways to feel seen as Black people who loved punk in the 90s and the 2000s at an era when, the scene was a lot more homogenous than it is now. This is also our excuse as people in our 40s. We think punk is a lot more diverse, a lot cooler now than it was back in the day. And this is our way to like hang out without being the cringy old guys. You make a book and that's kind of creating a space for other people. It's helping maybe pass a torch or give them a platform instead of us like taking up other space. And that was really important for us as well, was to kind of try to put on younger people and like the new generation and just kind of create this space on the page. Last thing about me is that I am currently cooking dinner for my family. So you're going to hear some knives moving. You might hear an oven door opening and closing. But I hope that just gives you a nice visual, and that maybe you can even smell these onions frying right now while you're out there.
Yes, and he promised to text me a plate too, so we're still working on that. So as soon as
Yes,
he's
that's the
done,
big goal. I'm making Zoe a plate today.
yeah, he sent it to me in the private chat, so y'all ain't gonna see it, so don't worry about it. It's my plate. But yeah. So I'm gonna start off, man. We got to start off in Richmond, man, because as
Yeah.
people that haven't, a lot of people actually, Chris, a lot of people in Richmond bought the book, and I had a lot of feedback from folks from Richmond, man. And see, I like to talk about your Richmond experience, because my Richmond experience, was just coming from a real tough time in high school with dealing with a lot of racism and a whole bunch of crazy stuff.
Mm.
The Richmond, Virginia hardcore scene was like my safe haven. And I'm gonna say this, I'm joking, but I'm kind of not joking. It's like, just because of the stuff that I dealt with, I think the only thing that made me really hate white people a lot was the Richmond hardcore scene. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like they brought me down there. It's okay, well, they can't all be that bad. So, and that Richmond hardcore scene was like, I mean, I remember, like I talked about the book. It's like you'd go, everybody in that whole crew, everybody would go get them. The new Madball CD came out, and then the
Mhm.
Wu-Tang came CD out, and they had both CDs. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? So like
Yeah.
that's like this. It was no issues at all. It was all love, man. It was a great time. So could you kind of talk about your experience growing up in Richmond?
Yeah. So my family moved there in 1994 when I was 15. So I went to
Mhm.
high school there, and I went to college. I went to VCU. I was like a skater kid, and I got into punk. I liked, the kind of entry level starter pack punk that I read about in Thrasher. Black Flag,
Yeah.
Bad Brains, and Buzzcocks.
Hmm.
But I didn't start like going to DIY shows and being like earnestly into that scene until we've been living in Richmond for a bit. I remember a guy I used to skate with brought me to see Four Walls Falling and like a
Mm.
shoegaze band from there called Damn Near Red,
Yeah.
and a band called Frodis that later went on
Yeah.
to be kind of like a pretty well-known post-hardcore band, but they were just
Hmm.
starting out at this time. Yeah, and I remember being there, and it was like I was really looking for my place in Richmond, and my family was like having money problems, and a lot of stuff felt kind of inaccessible to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I loved how punk kind of made you feel like you could do this, like you were supposed to participate. It wasn't really
Exactly.
too gatekept or anything. It made me feel capable at a
Hmm.
time when like life was not doing that for me in
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
within 6 months of starting to go to shows, we lived in the fan district. So,
Hmm.
half a mile from that club
Yeah.
Twisters.
You're right. You were right down the street.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
made friends with a guy named Brendan Trachy, who was still a close friend of mine. And like we had a band within a few months. And I remember that summer of 1995, like after 10th grade for me, just spent it like going to DIY shows, house shows all around the
Yep.
fan, going to
Yep.
Twisters, and
Mm.
doing lummy punk rock stuff, like driving around and spending $2 at Taco Bell to get a whole lunch, and then like spending the rest of my money on a record at Sound Hole. Yeah, so it was like
Sound
that
hole, yes.
was
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
was the
Well,
stuff for
you
me.
had to drive out. You had to drive out to the out the Midlothian to get a sound hole there, right?
Yeah, then they opened the West End one, and I was like, this actually feels even farther away.
Yeah.
It's funny. My wife her family lives near the exit that we used to take to go to Sound Hole. So I still
Mhm.
remember like what every bridge looks like with the signs for Parham Road, Gaskins
Yeah,
Road.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
what's up? Am I going to get this new Sensefield record today? Are they going to
Yeah,
have it? What's going on?
exactly. Yeah, actually, I used to well, I can't remember the dude's name, man. Him and his wife ran it, and I just
Right.
remember I used to go order it. I used to like, I need this. They're like, okay, it's here. You know what I'm saying? And I come up there and like see that 14.99 sticker on it, be like, yes. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So yeah, man. So it sounds like it's kind of similar experience how it really it really took you in and you embraced it, and it really you internalized it. What eh, you were talking about, like the introductory bands, you know what I'm saying? Like, what was it about the punk rock, the hardcore scene, about that? What was it all about that really um you gravitated towards?
What pulled me in?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the music was always cool. So,
Hmm.
my dad is my black parent, and he's
Okay.
a guitar player, and he likes he's always liked like hard rock and metal. So I grew
Yeah.
up hearing Living Color,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, Prince, a lot of black people with guitars.
Yeah.
So like that idea wasn't weird to me that like black
Yeah.
people. So I think that made like hard guitar music just attractive anyway. It felt kind of linked with my life. And so it was that love of, and also, you know, I like the kind of progressive politics and the like the irreverent sense of humor. You know, that meant a lot to me. I'm still a wise ass. And I like kind of having a place for that. And like I was saying before, it was also that kind of just accessible, like anybody can do it. Everyone's supposed to participate. You're on the same level as the bands. Especially like I was a hip hop kid before that also. And I feel like in the mid 90s, like a lot of rap, you know, that kind of shiny suit era kicked in and it felt a lot more exclusive. You know, it turned, you know, I came up on stuff where it felt like people were working together. And it turned into something where it felt like people were kind of divided apart. You know, rap groups died out with solo artists. And then, like, you can't be like me. And it's like I wanted. I was looking for community. Also, and for me, also listening to hip hop. Like I was living in the suburbs of Boston before that. As you can guess, not a lot of black people around. So that was kind of like my into black culture in a lot of ways. I learned a lot about being black by listening to hip hop in the late 80s and the early 90s and finding ways to feel seen and like getting an idea of other things I even wanted to know from doing that. And it felt like that was dying out, but that some of those politics and sense of community that I appreciated about hip hop was also present in punk, even though it was like a white framework instead of a black.
It's interesting because it's so similar and it's so similar in so many ways and it's just different. It's a different. The music's different, but like the ideas are very similar. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to like really underground hip hop. You know, I mean, even getting to the level like people like Wu-Tang, but you know that underground conscious hip hop. You know, and the lyrics of hardcore and punk. It's like they're all conscious lyrics. You know, they're all conscious lyrics. Well, not all of them, but you know, they're all.
Hey, sorry, I just kicked the cat's food bowl. They're all conscious lyrics?
Yeah. You know, they're not all, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So, wow, man. So, all right. So you're in Boston. You're doing that. You come to Richmond, and tell me about like the band you played in Richmond, because I remember because Gary Lama, he's the one that told me that you were what you were doing. He's the one that kind of connected me to you actually. And he was talking. I remember your band. I remember y'all. I don't remember if I think we probably played a couple of shows ago if I'm not mistaken because I remember the name. You know, I'm sure we did. But how did that come about?
Yeah, so I think we might have played together at St. Edward's or something. Or maybe like some battles of the bands. First thing out, we got our roast tofu, by the way. This is a recipe from Brian Terry's Vegan Soul Kitchen cookbook.
Okay, all right.
Brian Terry, no relation, but a very nice guy.
Okay.
That's out. First band I was in was called Flesh Eating Creeps.
Yeah,
and
we remember them.
Started off like DC hardcore influence. You know, Minor Threat, Void, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And got kind of weirder and noisier as we got older. That guy Brendan Tracey, who I mentioned before, was the guitar player. And we had the band from 1995 till 2000. And at that time, you know, we finished high school and went to VCU, and you know, we grew up a bit, so like our musical taste started getting a little bit more diverse.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We, you know, self-released a couple records, run a couple comps, did a couple tours, but not a whole ton. It wasn't a super successful band. It was just like that first experience of like traveling around playing music with your friends and seeing.
What was the lineup?
So it was Brendan on guitar, me singing. The original drummer was a guy named Joey Fitchett, who's still around.
Yes,
Richmond.
I thought so. That's what it was. Okay. Joey is my neighbor, actually. He lived right down the street. Yeah. He lives right on. He lives right down the street. I think his folks still stay there. I think I saw his brother. If not mistaken, his older brother. Because you know, I remember his older brother was a big metalhead, man. I can't remember his name, but he was a big time metalhead, man. And so was Joey, actually. But then he went from like metalheadness and kind of went into the punkness.
Joey, he definitely had that like metalhead Hesher, Beavis and Butthead type of.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of those heads back then did. A lot of those heads then, man. You know.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan, my bass player.
What's that?
I was just saying Ryan, my bass player from Independent. He
Yeah.
was a metalhead. You know what I'm saying? I think my coolness kind of shine on all of them. You know what I'm saying? They were like, I think I think my they were like, oh, okay, we can't be a cornball, man. We rocking with this cat. So
But
okay.
you had a theory that like a band needs a metal guy, a punk band needs a metal guy or two in the
Oh yeah.
band because they're
Mhm.
going to be better at their instrument.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
If you
yeah,
can
yeah,
get
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
drummer that
yeah.
really fucks with like Cannibal Corpse or something, like
Yeah,
they,
exactly. They can do it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's so
that's
true.
special
That's
for
so
punk.
true. Yeah, it's interesting because even a lot of good bands like No Effects that have that type of semi, the kind of metal feel to it, but the solos and stuff. Yeah, those are
Yeah,
the more technical. Those are the more technical bands, definitely. When it, and
yeah,
then, you hear the metal influence, you're like, oh man, that's a little bit more than just a couple riffs, like, a couple power chords.
yeah. So that yeah,
So
that's definitely I totally agree with you.
yeah.
That sort of heavy metal is really prevalent in some of that skate punk stuff, like
Yeah, oh yeah,
Melinated.
yeah, yeah. Suicidal. And actually I remember one thing that one band that really just snatched me back in the day. Um and actually it influenced actually as you can imagine influenced independent a lot was Biohazard, man.
Uh-huh.
I can't yeah, I think Dan and Ryan gave me the Urban Discipline album,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like, yo, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm like, this might be the coolest thing ever, what I'm saying, since sliced bread, man. Like we were heavily influenced by Biohazard, as you can imagine.
And another thing that was cool about some of those New York bands is they were more diverse too. Like there was
Yeah, oh yeah,
always,
yeah, 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 yeah.
sometimes there was like a black member. There's usually like some Puerto Rican people in there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Hey
and I
man, as you know, that's New York, man. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying, New York, and it's interesting, man, because we talk about and like, just the biracial aspect, because I have biracial nephews and nieces. And like it's interesting because in Richmond, the only biracial person I knew, he used to call himself Indian. I didn't realize later on that, yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I didn't realize, once you get older and you get out. But the thing was this: I didn't, I didn't understand anything about biracial anything until I moved to London, right?
Mhm.
Because in Midlothian in that area, you just don't see, you're not exposed to stuff like that, especially back then. So I moved to London and like, I'm one of my homeboys' girlfriend, she was biracial, and I went to hang out with them and his parents, and it was a trip because his dad looked like Peter Tosh and his mom looked like Farrah Fawcett, like literally, what I'm saying? But she had locks. So
Wow.
I'm just sitting there. Yeah, I'm just sitting there like I said, damn. And I'm looking at him. He looks like Obama, and she looks like Lisa Bonet. And I'm just like, that's your mom? That's your dad? You know what I'm saying? Because it's just you're just not you don't see that. I just wasn't experienced to interracial anything. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
was either, so yeah, so could you kind of talk about that dynamics, how it all played into even, your being today?
Yeah. So real quick, also the other band I had, the band that actually did the most was
Uh,
called Light the Fuse and Run. We were like an emo core band in the early 2000s.
like the road.
Um,
Okay.
like what it says on Firecrackers, Light the Fuse and Run.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And we went around the U.S. a couple times and into Canada. Went to Europe. We
Okay.
were on a label called Level Plane Records. It was like big with people that like a certain type of emo from right before like MySpace turned emo into like that Hot Topic swoopy bangs thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember like I went to California for the first time on tour
Okay.
with like Fuse and Run. And we came to like Southern California, and I was like, man, this Richmond very much felt like a black or white place, and that was
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm at a show and we're playing to a bunch of like beige and brown people, and like it was one of the first times in my life I didn't feel like I kind of stood out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is wild.
Yeah.
Like you go somewhere else and you get a very different look at things. You get a
Yeah.
different
Yeah. Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember I
We're
went
gonna
home.
get
I
into
was
that too. We're gonna get into traveling too, and I'm happy you brought that up, man. Because yeah, we definitely get into that too. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I remember I came home from that tour and was like eating dinner with my parents. Like I gotta get out of here. Here being Richmond, I was happy to hang out with my parents. They're cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
you wanted to talk. What was the
Well, yeah,
question?
just just kind of actually, it's interesting you said that. And I'll go to the next thing. He says, as soon as I came back from London and I came back to Richmond, I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. You know what I'm saying? Because I thought I was going crazy, man. I'm just like, because you go from that whole thing of all that stuff, when you see all this diversity, all this stuff, and all this stuff, and then you come back
Yep.
to Richmond, you're like,
Hmm.
yo,
Yeah.
I gotta go. That's when I moved to Atlanta. But no, but yeah, man, and yeah, talk about just like that whole the dynamics of the biracial aspect, and because you talked about in your book about losing the black card, is that something that you felt you went through, or was it, yeah, yeah? Could you kind of elaborate on that?
Sure, sure. I mean, so you can tell by looking like I'm pretty pale, right?
Yeah,
And this I was coming up in an era where like I liked rock music, I was into skateboarding, and that was like white shit in
yeah,
that
yeah,
era.
yeah. Wait.
This was the 1990s, early 2000s. So Black Card kind of exaggerates that, and it's
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
a story about like a clueless light skinned guy
yeah,
understanding like who's getting his ideas of blackness kind of poisoned by pop culture.
yeah, 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 yeah,
This
yeah.
this character in his head, he's like, well, I'm not like Lil Jon and the East Side Boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not like DMX and Belly. So
Mm-hmm.
am I black?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I'm seeing on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's about the character kind of understanding that like that is just what the media is showing.
Exactly.
And that isn't, that there's a lot more nuance to things than what
Yeah,
you get. And
yeah,
that,
yeah.
also being black is more than just, like the jokes in a movie like Undercover Brother, which is hilarious.
Exactly. Exactly right.
It isn't, you don't just have to like drink orange soda to be
Yeah.
black. You're
Exactly.
going through other things, and like even like the experiences that this character is having are also black experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he had to kind of like, yeah, just get some nuance and like widen his own definition of blackness that had been like
Mm-hmm.
poisoned by pop culture and by like the reductive white people around him. And that mirrored some of my experiences of, I was mainly like grew up around white people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and got into my early 20s. In a time, punk felt like a way to, in some ways, avoid having to think about racial identity.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
easier
yeah,
to
yeah.
say
I can
I'm
see
punk
that.
than
Yeah.
it is to say I'm black and half white and I kind of look like this and
Mm-hmm.
this and that.
Mm-hmm.
It's less complex, so it's easier to deal with. But
Mm-hmm.
the character I was writing and myself also, it's a semi-autobiographical book.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah.
started to feel like he had painted himself into a
Mm-hmm.
corner with that, and now he knew there was more out there that he was missing out on,
Mm-hmm.
and felt stuck and didn't know what to do. Kind of. So it's
You
about
can't.
like, go
Mhm.
ahead.
No, no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the book is kind of like the process of him like stripping away a lot of stuff from his life. By the end, I'm not spoiling too much here. There's a lot of other stuff that happens. So like he,
Mm-hmm.
like quits his job and doesn't have the same band anymore, and is kind of
Yeah.
getting this kind of humble restart of his life. Because in Richmond, you can move like a mile away, and your friends think you moved really, really far away. It's like having a whole new life. So he's kind of doing that kind of thing. He's like, I don't live west of the Boulevard anymore. I might move to Jackson Ward, be a whole new person. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah, man. Cause the fact that you just talked about earlier about going on tour and seeing different crowds, even if us we kind of dabble and talk about just going to New York and that whole experience. Because every time I've gone to New York, I've never, I mean, ever since I played there, going back, I've never seen a non-diverse crowd in New York. When
Yeah.
I say never, never, ever. Even in DC, when I would go to DC, like when I go up north, what I'm saying, I'd see not diversity, So could you kind of talk about like the the overall advantage that you experience by traveling?
Yeah. I mean, the more you see, the more options that you could possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, just as you see something doesn't mean it's yours. That's like the whole principle of white colonialism right there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
always how life is, but like just knowing that you might have options, that there's other
Mm-hmm.
things out there, I think are super valuable.
Yeah.
Like I remember a big moment for me. My sister went to college in the suburbs of New York City, and I went up to
Mm-hmm.
visit her when I was like 21. Um, and I remember sitting on the train and just being like, wow, there's just a variety of different people here. And I was
Mm-hmm.
intimidated to go to New York. It's a big city. It's got all this hustle to it. And, if you're like a smaller town person, you're living in Richmond, like that can seem really intimidating.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Also, ironically, Richmond, not the safest place in the world, but people still thought New York City was like a place where everyone gets mugged by like Bebop and Rocksteady by the ninja from the Ninja Turtles
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, 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 exactly.
So I was like a little shook to go to New York, even though
Mm-hmm.
like people were getting shot in front of where I lived in Richmond. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, I just had a moment where I was like, I was feeling it, I was liking it, but I was scared that it wasn't for me, that I couldn't do it. And I was on the train, and I was like, you know what? every other person on this train is pulling this off. Maybe I can try too. Maybe I
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I ended up getting out of Richmond and moving there a couple years later when I got done with school.
Mm-hmm.
So I think travel is great. Like
Mm-hmm.
Like the Fuse and Run, we played in 44 states, I want to say.
Good
And
gracious.
odds are, if I meet somebody, I played music in their hometown.
That's
So I
pretty
just
dope, man.
got to understand it for the country. Of course, you know, 3 weeks into a tour, you start off real excited to see the country. Then 3 weeks in, and you're like, oh, it's another Exxon and a McDonald's and a Cracker Barrel. This could be anywhere, but it's so valuable to even know that, you know.
Yeah. And to see it, man, and just to, one thing I learned, and it was a really big lesson in life just recently when I had, just going back to Richmond. It's like traveling. It seems like it's like the multiverse. You know what I mean? It's like
Um,
it's like completely different realities, in different places because things are just so different. And
yeah,
I just realized that recently, just in the difference between living in Atlanta and living in Richmond. It's like, you know, I can't even compare them, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? It's like night and day. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
me just traveling, and I'm with you 100%, man. Traveling in so many ways is just so important. I tell people all the time, get your passport, go, even if you don't get your passport, at least go around, the states, you know what I'm saying, and see different places, see different geography, see different
yeah.
people. You know what I'm saying? It's a great experience to have, man. Just talking about traveling.
Even like I would say the thing that ripped the Band-Aid off for me was my family moving to Richmond.
Yeah.
I didn't want to move. No kid is like excited to move to another city, but
Hmm.
once we did it once, and that gave me the idea that I could move around. I could make my way through the world. I could be in different places and survive and thrive.
Hmm.
So I didn't have like the big jump of like being 18 and finishing high school and having to decide if I wanted to finally leave somewhere.
Hmm.
Because I'd already done it.
Yeah. Been there, done that. Yep. You know, I'm gonna kind of go to another direction now because
Ooh.
I'm gonna tell you, man. When I first heard of like black, I mean, I always used to like listen to Prince and Michael Jackson. Back in the day, I wasn't seeing somebody playing rock music wasn't that really different to me. That was black. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I'm gonna tell you something, man. When I got a wind of the Bad Brains, and I don't know if you know, because actually Earl, he produced 3 songs on one of our albums. The drummer Earl Hudson, he on
Oh wow.
Moon 9, our band down here in Atlanta. He produced 3 songs. He actually lives off of 288. He lives in Atlanta, but well, I don't know about now, but anyway, when I got a hold of Bad Brains,
Mm.
and I like got a shirt, and I just remember going to shows, and I felt like the proudest man on the damn planet. Did you have that type of experience too?
I did. So I wrote about that in Blackpunk Now in the intro.
Cool.
That moment of like finding, yeah, I read about them in Thrasher magazine and was like, I need to hear this.
Yeah.
And it was the best punk that I'd heard to date.
Mhm.
Um, and it also just helped to kind of bring that context that I had at home with my guitar playing Black Dad. Like it helped to kind of transfer that sense of home to the like
Mhm.
some of the alternative music that
Mhm.
I liked, some of the punk music that I liked, where I was starting to sense like a kind of discrepancy, between what my life was like at home and what things were like in like the punk or the skate or the alt scene when it was mainly like a white thing. So there was
Yeah.
like a real bridge for me. And also like you can't deny that they're an incredible
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
Amazing musicians. They write great songs. It's
Yeah.
so good to listen to. That said, this isn't a knock on Bad Brains, but one of our goals, I see Bad Brains as a starting point, right? That's one of the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
punk bands that a lot of people get into, and
Mhm.
that's the first black punk band that most people can think of. And there's a good
Mhm.
reason for that. It's because they were among the first.
Yeah.
There was that,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
right? But like they were like, I'd say the first and best hardcore punk band. That's
Yeah. I agree.
that's like I'll plant. Um, so for a lot of people, it just stops there, right?
Yeah.
They think
Yeah.
you're black punk, and they're like, okay, Bad Brains, cool. On to
Mhm.
the next, back to
Mhm.
listening to whatever else,
Mhm.
and they don't really look any further. So and that can feel kind of limiting, especially if
Exactly.
you're trying to kind of see yourself in punk
Mhm.
and you're a black person. maybe you're not a Bad Brains type of person. Maybe
Exactly.
you're a different type of punk rocker. There's different ways to be Black and punk. So one of our goals with Blackpunk now is to create a bigger frame of reference. Think of Bad Brains as a jumping off point. What is the next step you take? Is it going to be like a zinester, like Osa Addo, who's writing about DIY music in here? Is it to be a gamer, a trans gamer, like Mars Dixon, who's talking in our book about his experiences, like developing his gender identity through video games. We wanted people to have more options because it still happens. Like, and there's a, that thing where you have like a punk band or a guitar band and it's a Black band. Like, as soon as it's kind of hard guitar music with a Black person, they're going to get compared to Bad Brains. No matter And it's frustrating. It's right? It's like, it's that same like, oh, it's another Black person. You must know each other. Same type of racism just translated to music. And this isn't a diss on Bad Brains, who were an incredible, groundbreaking band, but we wanted to give white people less of an excuse to tokenize Black people.
Yeah. So and that's so true what you're saying right now. That is so like, if you haven't experienced it, it might not hit as hard, but if you've been there and experienced it, what he's saying right now is just so true. And I feel the same way because, there's a lot of bands, there's a lot of other Black metal bands that I've heard that, I mean, shoot, just like somebody, I mean, even though Living Color is huge or whatever, but like, just like if you take the musicianship, and what you can hear, and if you know music and you listen to somebody like Living Color, you're like, good, these dudes are like masters. You know what I mean? But there's others bands. It's like Michael Jordan. There's Michael Jordan made it, but there's other basketball players that might have been just as good as him or better, but they were out there. They just didn't make it. You know what I mean? And throughout the years of playing music, I think I've seen other Black rock bands that are just dope as anything about anybody else, but they might, like you said, just get compared to Bad Brains, and that's it.
Yeah. Are you familiar with, Soul Glow, the current band? Yeah, Soul Glow. I remember they tweeted like, "Stop comparing us to Bad Brains."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, like straight up. Yeah. Because the reality is, even though punk and hardcore can only it can still evolve, and it still has evolved. You know what I mean? Because like when I listen to something even like newer compared to something that I feel, me personally, I see a big difference in the music. You know what I'm saying? As far as having more breakdowns, or even the musicianship overall. You know what I mean? I see a huge evolution, but to somebody that might not listen to it, they might be like, "Oh, that sounds like Bad Brains." Like, no, that doesn't sound like Bad Brains. It sounds like nothing like them.
Yeah. They didn't even come up with the Bad Brains comparison until they saw a Black person in the band photo.
Yeah, exactly. That makes it like 80 times worse.
It is interesting though. Do you remember Into Another? They were like a Revelation Records band.
I remember Into Another,
And they're like, they have like this weird kind of like heavy metal type of feel. I was listening to their early stuff, and at the time I was like, this is like crazy prog rock, heavy metal. What is this? But then I was listening to their first album, and I was just like, oh, this sounds like white guys who play Dungeons and Dragons doing Eye Against Eye by Bad Brains.
Yeah. I hear that a lot too. Yeah.
Let's compare some white bands to Bad Brains and see if they can bring it.
Yeah, that's hilarious, man. That's hilarious. Okay, so all right, so tell me about the whole writing thing. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm gonna tell you straight up, Chris. I literally wrote my book by an accident. I mean, of course, I write lyrics. I've been writing for a while, but I literally wrote my book by accident. I sat there on my BlackBerry back in the time, just laid in bed, and just next thing you know, I had a book. Could you kind of talk about your writing influences, what got you into writing, and can go on that route?
Sure. So first off, I'm mad at you that it came that easily to you. Every time, it's funny, I get frustrated a lot about writing stuff. And my wife is always like, you chose a career that is hard and it sucks.
Yeah, it is hard.
You're right here. And this is what picks me. I don't have any choice in the matter. I always like to write. I was like a early reader. My mom is a children's librarian. So books were always present in our house. And my parents always kind of encouraged me to be creative, whether it was music or writing. I have one of those personalities where like, if I don't love it, if it's not something I care about, then I can't pretend, so I'd be getting an A in English and an A in art, and then barely scraping by in the other topics at school. Yeah, and I don't know, I always knew I wanted to be a writer, even when I was playing in bands. I kind of thought, I joke about aging gracefully earlier about not wanting to be trying to rock out still. There was a similar thing where I was like, I know that this band stuff isn't going to last forever. I want to write books. I really desire that. I want my name on the spine of a book. So I went to grad school. I got a master's degree in creative writing in the early 2010s. So I started grad school in my late 20s. Like music stuff kind of ended for me when I was maybe 26-ish. And grad school, I went into debt to do this because I felt called to do it. I wasn't a very good student, so I didn't get into some of the more prestigious funded programs. But it was the right fit for me, and got the chance to spend a couple years just writing, learning how to write, learning how to be a writer, how to read as a writer, and devoting myself to just putting words on the page. I had to write a novel to graduate, and that book became my first novel. It's called Zero Fade. Came out in 2013. It's a young adult story. It's about a teenage boy on North Side Richmond. And it's another story about the way pop culture can kind of mess with people's perception of themselves. But he's has weird ideas about masculinity, basically. So he's like a homophobe in a 7th grade boy way. And his favorite
Yeah.
He's dealing with that and processing that. And being like, but I love this Eddie Murphy tape with all these gay jokes on it. What do I do? How does this all come together? Yeah, so that was my first book, 2013. So I'm gonna put some of this tofu in the spinach curry.
All right.
So that book came out, Zero Fade came out, and it did pretty good. It got some nice reviews, it got some good press, and it sold better than expected. It wasn't a huge hit or anything, but it definitely it for better or for worse encouraged me to do it again. So I spent the next 3 years writing Blackpunk. Excuse me. I'm not playing the drums over here. That was a pain. Black Card, I did a draft a year between 2013 and 2016. And in that time, also, adult life was coming at me fast. I'd kind of put it on hold to be in school. And my wife is, a little bit older than me and was getting near 40 and was like, if we're going to have a kid, we need to do this now. In those 3 years, I became a parent. I moved from Chicago, where I've been in school, to Los Angeles because my wife got a job out here. We officially got married. We dated for a long time without being married. And I started 9 to 5 and to support all of this. So I was writing ads. I was working at a shoe company, making shoe catalogs for a while, working at a wine company, writing about wine. And would just, find little bits of time to chip away at this book. If you say I'm going to sit down and write a 300-page book, chances are you're going to get a little bit overwhelmed. You're up after 30 pages. But if you're like, I'm going to write 2 pages a day for 2 months and then look at that and see what I can do with it, then, you stack up all those little 2-page bricks, and next thing you know, you've got a book. So that's kind of what I did with Black Card. I was just determined. At first, I had the kind of anxiety that I was never going to become a writer, that going to school was for nothing, that I was never going to become an author, that this was a waste of time, and I'd be back to doing what I was doing before, which was making Avon catalogs and getting drunk and watching CSI every night. I didn't really expect that. So I wrote another novel. That came out in 2019, and I took kind of a step up. I started working with a bigger publisher, got a little bit of a bigger advance. And so 2019, Black Card dropped, and it was this kind of weird, perfect storm of events where I had a 9 to 5 job that I was really burned out on and didn't like, but I knew that I was doing copywriter work, writing ads. And I knew that if I took another job like that, it would just feel like a lateral move. And 6 months later, I'd be bummed out again. So I was really looking for a change, trying to do something else. And I got laid off. So, the company was changing, and I figured it was time for me to change as well. So I started freelancing, and I got hired to write a TV script based on Black Card.
Dope.
And so for a few months there, I was doing different freelance work and just waiting for this go-ahead to try to make Black Card the show. And literally a week before COVID popped off, I remember it was March 5th, 2020. I had a call with the cable network that wanted me to do this. And they're like, okay, it's all good. The business is all set. The contracts are signed. Start writing. So like peak of COVID pandemic type of stuff, my job I had was screenwriting. I was writing a script, like a TV pilot based on Black Card. And also me and my friend Ezra Clayton Daniels were adapting another science fiction book for another client. So I had like a weird Hollywood career for like a year there, right at the peak of the pandemic. And both of those projects, like I got paid, I wrote scripts. They never ended up on the screen. They never advanced past the script stage. But it was a really cool experience. I'm really glad that like I got to do that when I was stuck at home fearing for my life with COVID, instead of having to like sit in a team meeting and talking about like making a Black Friday sale or something, you know? Yeah. So these days, I do a mix of like freelance work and teaching. I do like copy editing work. And I'm working on my third novel right now. I'm on the fourth draft. I get in like an hour or so on it every morning before the real work, or like the other. No, it's all real work. It is all real work. Before the work for other people that is promised to pay me really begins. Yeah. So like today, I worked on this novel I'm writing for an hour or two, and then did some copy editing and like graded some of my students' work. Yeah, I'm pretty much busy doing stuff I like. And it's good. You know, I try to remember that when I get stressed out, that it could be
way worse. Yep.
Because caring about something is more stressful. Yeah. Does that answer your question about writing?
Yes. Okay, so how? I mean, I know you're out in the West Coast now. So how do you and Spooner link up?
Man, Ezra, the guy I mentioned that I did the screenwriting job with, actually introduced us. Ezra was also like a comics person, and James did this graphic novel. So he introduced us 6 or 7 years ago. And it was one of those weird, like, you know, the Spider-Man meme where they're all like pointing at each other.
Yeah.
Like we're both kind of like, wait, you're into that too? Wait, you were there? You did this? And it turned out like we're about the same age. We like a lot of the same type of like weird, specific type of like emo from the 90s. Like he was releasing some of these like kind of obscure like emo record in a manila envelope type of things that I was buying when I was like 16, 17 years old. And we even lived like half a mile from each other in New York. Paths never crossed. You know, I saw Afro-Punk back in the day, and it was special for me. Yeah. So that's how we linked up. It was kind of like we had been living these parallel lives. He was kind enough to do a event for my book Black Card with me. He like interviewed me on stage, and we just been in touch ever since. You know, we got a lot of stuff in common, so it would be really hard. And it was really cool working together. We're both grown, and it was fun to like go on a book tour and kind of relive some of that band stuff. Actually be getting paid, and no one's like smoking a cigarette in my face, and I'm with like one laid back friend as opposed to like you know.
Yeah, that's dope, man. And it's, you know, and it's interesting that you saying that, because it's like when I was saying about traveling, like the multiverse and the parallel, you know, the parallels of all of this. It's like you guys are so similar, but you've had a similar upbringing. You know what I mean? Or, you know, not upbringing, but experience in life, I should say. That's a better way to put it. You know what I mean? So you get to that point, you're just like, damn, man, I thought I was the only one going to this. Man. You too? You know what I'm saying? You know, that the people in Richmond, my homeboys, T, Cheese, and Joseph, all them cats, they were the ones that made me realize that I wasn't. You might even know Joseph and T and Cheese, but anyway, they're the ones that showed me I wasn't the only one in this by myself. You know what I mean? As far as being a black rocker and all that stuff, and you know, dealing with all the female issues, you know, anything that deal with that, and they were all older than me, so they were literally like navigating me through all of this. So I wasn't nearly as confused and lost as I thought I was. You know what I mean?
That's great. You need those people. You need those older people that are going through some of the same things. I didn't always have that racially. Like I had some cool older punk friends that put me onto some really cool stuff, but for the most part, they were not black generally.
They were. I don't know, man. They put me on everything. I think all good music they literally put me on to, because I really got into punk really like right after I graduated. I always listened to metal and stuff and all that stuff, but punk specifically, you know, I think somebody first punk band that I listened to that I really, really, really liked was the Ramones. They had a
Mhm.
that it was one of their greatest hits album, and that was like a beach week.
Ramones
Somebody
maybe on
played
the
it.
yellow cover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I listened
Yeah.
to that, and I'm just like, yo, this is dope. And then I started listening to a whole bunch of music, and they're like, and I met these cats, like, well, you need to listen to Steel Pulse, you need to listen to Bad Brains, you need to listen to Fishbone, you need to listen to,
Mhm.
just the whole list. I'm just like, what next? What next? You know what I'm saying? Next, sir. You know, so they schooled me, they literally groomed me. Musically, and just, even spiritually, what I'm saying? They're all pretty deep cats. But
That's cool.
yeah, man. So I definitely, and see, that's the thing, man. Like that's the I'll never hate on Richmond or any of that because of the uniqueness of Richmond. You know what I mean? The uniqueness, because I was in Brooklyn. I was in Williamsburg about
Uh-huh.
seeing a friend that I used to be friends with back in when I lived in London. She's Australian, so we linked up. We haven't seen each like 20 years, but I was in Williamsburg, and I was just like looking around. I was just like, in a strange way, it reminded me of Richmond. You know what I mean? Or Richmond was like trying to be like a Williamsburg, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, wow, this is I see I really see why people like living here in New York in this area, and I could see Richmond why people living in Richmond, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. You know what I mean? And
I mean, I think you can get that kind of small town feel, and it's kind of walkable.
yeah.
Um, and there's a community. James was living in Williamsburg like in the early 2000s,
Oh,
and
really?
he's working on a book about some of those experiences. And he
Hmm.
has this like yearbook page of every black person in Williamsburg in that era.
Damn.
But yeah, it feels good to like be somewhere that feels kind of self-contained and manageable. I think
Yeah,
about that
yeah, yeah,
the same
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah,
making a book is like stacking up a bunch of 2-page bricks. Like those huge cities are really sometimes it feels like 20 small towns stuck together.
yeah, 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 yeah,
I need to
yeah,
pull
yeah,
something out
yeah.
the oven. It might be kind of loud. My main pan
No,
is like
go ahead,
eighth of an
man.
inch bigger than the actual oven, so it gets jammed in. So
Hey,
if
have
you
at it. Have at.
okay,
I'm just waiting for my plate, so you good. Take your time.
it's coming soon. It's coming
Yes.
soon.
Hurry up.
Voila! All right, we got the carrots. Oh, I got a few more minutes, and I need to serve this food. What
Yeah,
else? What else
Hey,
can I talk
hey.
about?
We're good. I want you to tell the people. We already talked about your book, and actually, let me pull it up here. So,
Sure.
let me pull it up here. Let me do it. I want you to tell everybody, as we say down in the South,
Hmm.
um, where they can find this book, where they can get it.
Yeah.
This is my man, our homeboy James. This is his
Yeah.
page. Um, so please tell. Actually, you know what? Let me get this. I'm gonna do this for you real quick. Hold on a second. Just because you said it might be easier to do it this way. Let me do this for you real quick. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Do this.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All
So
right, so yeah, this is
Black
the web.
House.
This is the web page that we're looking at now. Spooner's no fun. This is a very entertaining website. It goes along with James's. And now Chris, I can see how I can see how y'all y'all can definitely get along. but
Cool.
but yeah, this is where you can get the book. Yeah, just tell the people ins and outs, what they need to do, all the good stuff.
Sure, sure. So Black Punk now is an anthology. It is fiction and nonfiction and comics, all by and about Black punk rockers. And James Spooner and I co-edited it. It came out on Halloween. So you can get it directly from James's site, spoonersnofun.com. But you can also get it pretty much anywhere they sell books.
Hmm.
Another good place to buy it online is a bookshop,
Hmm.
bookshop.org.
Hmm.
That supports independent bookstores. Um, or you can maybe get it at a local bookstore. You can buy it locally, And, you know, if you just want to please the robot overlords, Amazon has it as well. You can get it directly from the publisher, Soft Skull Press. It's pretty easy to find. They have major distribution. It's a subsidiary of one of the big publishing companies. And also, you know, you can find James's book, The High Desert, on his site and online. And you can find my most recent novel, Black Card, just about anywhere as well, on all those places I mentioned, though he doesn't have it on his website, but maybe we should change that.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to put it on there.
Look up Black Card, look up The High Desert. And thank you all for listening. Let me give a little deconstructed plate tour here. We don't have I don't have the plate put together, but I can show you what we go into this.
Yes, please.
Plate that I'm sending Zoe. All right,
you know,
so
I'm gonna give you. I'm not giving you the one. See, it's all on you now. So.
All right, roast tofu. Hold up, gotta tip it without pouring food everywhere. So this is from Bryant Terry's book, Vegan Soul Kitchen. So I just cooked that in the oven. These are some roast carrots, which I got some of the ideas for the recipe from the Superiority Burger Cookbook. And on the stove right now, gotta be careful. But this is like a spinach curry with, some of the roast tofu in it, and some of it's on my floor now. So this is kind of like a twist on the Indian dish saag paneer. I've also got some rice in the fridge that I'm gonna heat back up because I made too much the other night, so we'll be serving it with that.
Okay, so there's no vegan chitlins on the menu tonight?
No vegan hog at all.
Oh, okay. All right, you can keep the plate then. I need my vegan chitlins. So.
What would that even look like? I'm trying to think about how that would be.
I mean, shoot, an egg roll.
Yeah, something stretchier, like a calamari.
Yeah. You go. Oh man, hey, a good one. Okay. Yeah, calamari. You're right.
Challenge accepted. I'm gonna figure that out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Vegan chitlins. I can see it. All right. We go if it makes it big, 50-50 split. You know what I'm saying? So you know, we sit here. But man, it's just so awesome talking to you, my man. You know what I'm saying? Always good to talk to my let me get us all on here. Actually, let me do this. I'm gonna keep your book up there too. Yeah. So awesome talking to you. Please, everybody, get this book. Spread the word. You got a fellow Richmonder, a fellow great human being. You know what I'm saying? Fellow punk rocker. You know what I'm saying? Punk rocker fraternity. All y'all, even the skinhead fraternity. You know what I'm saying? All you guys, go out there, get the book. You know what I'm saying? Tell everybody to get this book, because for the people that have questions about back in the day when they go to shows and be like, yeah, I wonder so and so how he felt at black shows being the only person. I'm sure you'll get a lot of good information from all these books that is in front of us right now. So Chris, man, I thank you so much. You know what I'm saying? This was a pleasure, and you know what I'm saying, and please stay in touch. And I definitely want to get that book out to you too, so you can so we can we can play ping pong, you know what I'm saying, with the book stuff. So
yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Vegan ping pong, that is.
Not gonna be hitting the meatball back and forth?
No meatballs. I don't want no. It gotta be vegan ping pong. But yes, no meatballs, please. So I appreciate you, sir. And everybody go get the book, you know what I'm saying? And besides that, we are out of here. Anything else? Any final words you got for the folks?
So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. It was really nice to reconnect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. And please stay in touch, and we'll talk, and we'll go from there, bro. Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast. We out of here, and peace and love to everybody. Hold on one second, Chris, before you go.